G'day everyone, bringing you an update of what I've been up to, what I've been painting, and as you can see in front of you, I've finished some English Civil War horse, and the miniatures in question are all metal, and they are from Bicorne Miniatures in the UK. And I believe that they are the same sculptor who has worked for Richard of Bloody Miniatures. And if you remember back to a previous video, I painted some Bloody Miniatures, English Civil War characters on foot. And these Bicorne Miniatures, as I said, same sculptor and for the same customer. And they're really lovely. They're really lovely figures. It was a joy to paint them. And yeah, more horses, and believe it or not, there's a lot more cavalry in my future. I have received some very cavalry centric jobs coming up, so that should be good. So let's spin them around so you can see them from different angles. Again, you know, they're fairly similar. They've got the buff jackets, slightly different coloured trousers, things like that. Each has subtle differences, different horses, different turns of the head and things like that. But they're really lovely figures, these Bicorne ones. They're probably slightly bigger than some English Civil War ranges from what I understand, having not, like the Perrys, for example, having not, and perhaps Empress, I don't know. I haven't seen any of those, so just from what I've read on the internet. So they give them a bit of a turn about. Yeah. So yeah, I went for slightly different shades on the buff jackets. I mean, these two look very similar, but they are actually two different triads, but they're quite tonally quite close, whereas this is actually more of a true sort of buff, much lighter sort of buff. Yeah, some subtle differences in colour again, and their saddle, well, not saddle blankets, but their saddle sort of coverings are different colours as well. So just to mix it up a bit. Yeah, so I guess they would do for, I guess, for either side. I'm not sure. There's nothing too distinguishing about them where you would say, oh, that's Royalist or that's Parliament, from what I understand anyway. Okay, there'll be some stills of these guys at the end. I'm going to pause the video here and come back to the next section, because the next miniatures are not historical, they're fantasy miniatures. So something completely different. So I'll be back directly. Okay, guys, now these characters, menacing looking characters you can see in front of you here, these are, I think they're called Anubis guards or something like that. Obviously related to the Egyptian mythology and with the dog-headed sort of Anubis kind of imagery. These are 28mm metal fantasy miniatures. I believe they're from a company called Dark Fable, which may be a subsidiary of another company, I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, so here they are, lots of metallic. Still, you know, once you get them under the light, they're still reasonably shiny, even though they've had ultra matte varnish on them. Even, you know, everything's, all my metallics are done with true metallics rather than non-metallic metal, which I can't claim to be a master of, but I'm trying slowly to learn about those sorts of things. Actually, I try and apply some of those methods to the true metallics, because I think that helps the appearance of them. I'll give them a bit of a spin. So sort of a deserty themed basing, and you can see they've got that Ankh symbol on their bronzy shields. Now the effect on the shield was partly achieved with once sort of base coats and washes were on, I did some dry brushing with a very soft, small makeup brush, just this one, like a cheap sort of one that my wife threw away from an old makeup set, and I claimed it, and it's very soft, very, very soft and small, and good for doing those sort of bits like that where you just want to get a really subtle effect of a much lighter metallic, like coming from the top. So can't do it everywhere because you sort of, it has to be on targeted areas, otherwise it'll get you all over the place. But yeah, it seemed to work quite well for there. So yeah, a lot of that sort of enamel colours, the reds and the greens on there around the necks and on their wrists and such. And I went for a sort of a darker wood effect on the inside of their shields. Yeah. So that's those dodgy looking characters. And I'll pause again and bring up the next lot. Okay, here's the the next lot. Again, a bit of the Egyptian sort of theme on this end, with some sort of, it's almost mummified looking. His body's very shriveled and everything, and you can actually see it on the back. The bones in his spine start to stick out, and his shoulder blade and all this sort of stuff. Very wizened, sort of mummified Egyptian dude. Again, I think these are all from, as far as I'm aware, from the Dark Fable range. Although, you know, I could almost think that that was from Crocodile Games, but I don't think it is. I think it's again from this Dark Fable range. Done them all with that sort of fairly barren basing, that sort of deserty kind of thing. Although these other two, I'm not sure if they're necessarily deserty characters per such as such. But yeah, this guy here, that's a fairly simple, old school looking model. Bit of a ring in for Skeletor in a sense. It's got that very skeletal face. I've given him some really some orange eyes glowing in there. Lots of quite dark, shadowy robes, but it's hard to make out. But and then I applied like a really thin glaze of like dark blue over the top of the greys, just to, yeah, probably doesn't show up on camera too well. Again, his weapons look kind of, got a little bit of, a minor bit of rust into some of the pitting and stuff in there, just to give it some age. Same with the axe, it's very subtle. Yeah, sort of semi-skeletal, or mostly skeletal kind of character. And then this guy on the end, he's really quite unusual. He's got some sort of snake theme going. He's got these sort of same strange snake things on his helmet, and then on his pauldrons on his shoulders, and the tail's curling around onto his chest. So what I've done is I've looked and I thought, well, I've got to have some green and greenish for the snake. So so what I've done is gone with a really super deep green for his robe below, and then to contrast or complement that, a really deep red on his cloak, and then I've used like a greeny gold for a lot of the armor, with picking out bits in what's called it's an emerald alchemy or something like that. It's a scale 75 metallic color, and then with a bit of glazing again over the top of that to bring that out even more. So I'll give him a swing around, and I did a different, you'll notice all three have quite different skin tones. That's very deliberate. This is much more of a sort of mahogany base. Like this was, I think, from the Reaper Triad, the Ghoul Skin Triad. This guy, I think it was called an Olive Skin Triad, but it's actually kind of, I think it fits with this sort of creepiness, the sliminess of the character. Sort of, it's kind of a, I don't know if it doesn't, to me, I don't look like a true olive Mediterranean skin tone necessarily, but it's just an unusual kind of, there's a greenish kind of look to that as well. And that's the contrasting cloak. Going to quite dark in the shadows, make it a nice contrast with the, you know, the shiny greenish pauldrons on his shoulder. So yeah, doing these fantasy miniatures is a lot of fun, from doing historicals, just to sort of break things up, and each is such an individual character. And fortunately, I mean, sometimes Albie has pictures of like, oh, can we do it like this person's done it with colour schemes, but most of the time he gives me quite a free hand for, you know, what I feel works for that figure, which I really enjoy. And it's very creative. Each one's very individual, and because you're not painting for a war band or an army per se, you're painting kind of character figures. Yeah, and it's just nice to mix things up with those kind of different miniatures. And I'm fortunate he sends me a lot of manufacturers that I've never seen before. He has quite an eclectic sort of collection of figures from all sorts of manufacturers, both in metal and resin, and I've got some more to show you. Just a sec, I'll pause again. Okay, here are the final three, and these miniatures are all resin from 3D prints or renders, and as such very light to hold, but they were such fun to paint. They really were great fun. And now, if I can remember where they're from, I think this one is from some mob called Dragon Trappers Club or something. Dragon Trappers something or other. And these two are from, I think they're called the Lion's Tower. So yeah, I think if you Google those names, you might better track them down where they came from. I'm not sure if they have stores or whether they have Patreon pages or Kickstarters or what the story is, but yeah, my customer finds some really interesting miniatures. Now, such fun to paint, they really were. Look, I'm quite fond of this, how this elven sort of red-headed elven chick on the end turned out. It's really cute. It won't show up probably very well on the screen. It doesn't render it too well, but there's, I mean, I paint with, I mean, I wear glasses, but I paint also with magnification, and it's some, just the face, I was really pleased with how the face turned out, her blue eyes and stuff, and detail it probably won't be able to see except under magnification, but I know it's there. So a really pretty model, really cute. And I liked how the red hair turned out. I use along with washes, a red hair triad from Reaper. But you know, there's a wash stage in there as well to deepen the darkest recesses. And on this one, I've just done some final highlights where I've mixed the lightest orange with an even lighter creamy ivory color to make it really pop. So you can see this, yeah, there's various sort of different leather straps and things, and you've got the tones of the wood of the bow. And I went for a different sort of a grayish sword sheath, which I thought was an interesting contrast. And my customer just said, oh, you know, anything he specified was, can we make her a redhead and make her shirt color sort of light? And so that's what I went for. I used like a creamy ivory sort of triad for that. Yeah, really pleased how that turned out. And she's got that's the leafy pattern on her wristband things. That's that emerald alchemy metallic color from scale 75. And there's a couple of other hints of it on these spikes on her shoulder as well. And I think, oh yeah, I think I put it on the dagger too, just so that it's in more than one place. Yeah, quite taken with that miniature. Now this chap is an assassin sort of character. Guys, this is quite challenging to paint because you don't want them to be too, you know, you think of them operating in the shadows or in the dark and those sort of things. but I didn't want to just go all black. What I wanted to have was sort of night kind of colors, so I've gone for really deep purples and a deep I think it's the AK Interactive 3rd Gen Oxford blue, I think was the blue. It's kind of a really dark blue, but it has a hint of red in it, so it's kind of in that purplish sort of spectrum. So, and with the black leathers, I didn't use pure black. I used I think it's smoke black, but then there were washes and stuff. And then what I do is I take that my darkest color, and to get the highlights for, you know, little wear and tear and a little highlighting on the leather, I mix in a flesh tone, rather than don't want to just mix in white and go to grey. You want a bit of the flesh tone because the leather is made of skin, presumably. So where it's going to wear, it's more logical that it would have, you know, where the areas where the dye may have worn off, or you want to get even just a shine. I think it's more realistic to mix a bit of a skin tone in with your black colour to show wear or highlights on black leather. So let's turn him around now. The real trick was he has so you probably can't make it out, but he has like a quilted lining on the inside of his jacket, and that's in this same blue. So it's really a two-tone scheme with this purplish blue and this purple, but also he has this decorative stitching and things on his wrists and over his shoulders and around the base of the jacket. And I kind of wanted that to be like not really bright, but it's sort of like a moonlight kind of thing, like as if he's walking in the shadows, but somehow the moonlight or something like that's hitting him on the back, and it's just this. So I used just sort of light bluey greys to kind of, cause it was quite intricate, but this 3D print, unlike a lot of metal miniatures where often the sculpting of that sort of filigree kind of detail is a bit deeper and it's easier to get washes and things and to get the contrast there. This was a 3D render and it was a little bit softer, so I had to kind of just sort of very lightly touch it and mark it and sort of not quite dry brush, but just sort of scuffle over the surface to try and pick out some of that pattern, to suggest it, you know, with a sort of a bluey grey, and yeah, without it being too blingy or anything, because he doesn't want to glow in the dark. But yeah, there's still enough shine. I mean, there's a bit of shine on his sword and things like that, but yeah, pretty pleased with how that turned out. Okay, and this other girl at the end, it was interesting, this one, when I looked at the image that my customer sent me of this female mercenary, actually on the render that they were showing in the picture, she had this huge scar on her face, but the actual miniature, I couldn't see it. It wasn't there. Whether this is, it might be that they did a couple of versions or something like that of this figure, but this huge, and it was a massive scar. It would have been very evident, but it wasn't there. Her face is smooth. Face is smooth, and I didn't file it off. I don't recall doing so. I would have, you know, I didn't. It would have been very hard to clean up anyway if I wanted to remove it, because it's such a small area on the side of her cheek, sort of thing. So, again, went for a blondie here. With hair like this, what I find is it's a good idea to think of it like you know, in hair, and other people have talked about this on YouTube. You know, you get your hair adverts in a magazine, a glossy magazine, and the photographers tend to exaggerate the sheen, and that's the kind of look you want to go for, because it's all about exaggeration in miniature. So you want to have quite strong, sort of stronger darks and lights, and don't try and just highlight every single strand. Work on areas like the top of her head is much lighter and brighter, and then where it curves out again, you know, so you get that contrast between the dark and the light. Bit of fluff there. Yeah, so again, she's got lots of different layers. There's a lot of layers, and there's some splint mail and a bit of plate and all sorts going on there. Again, lots of leather, a quilted jacket under there, so there was lots of things to pick out and paint, that's for sure. Lots of surfaces. She's even got sort of braiding in the back of her hair there. So yeah, there was quite a bit to do there. Yeah, really pleased with how that turned out as well. Again, you know, the paint went on well for, you know, with female faces, I try to be a bit more careful with the blending and stuff. And this guy's actually got a slightly different, it's very hard to make out because he's mostly under the hood, but he does have a different skin tone to these ladies. And for them, for those three figures, I used, normally use the Reaper skin triads, but this time I used the, I was using a number of colors from the Scale 75 flesh paint set, which are really nice. Really, they blend very smoothly, dry very, very matte, and are really nice to work with for getting those sort of subtle variations on the skin. Yeah, great fun. Miniatures that, you know, again, I was able to enjoy, take my time over, and I guess my main focus for these type of things is to try and get the skin, the head, the face, the hair, really make that's your sort of that, and having a good base is what we tend to see most of all, although perhaps not in the case of this guy, so that could be a bit more challenging when you don't see much of a person's face. But hopefully I've pulled off a decent result with that. Yeah, so that's all for the moment, guys. So that's 9 fantasy miniatures and 3 English Civil War historical characters. In my lineup for the future, there's quite a lot has come in, which is fantastic. I've got a big Strathclyde, Dark Age Strathclyde project, another one, yes, another one, but this time instead of being done with footsore miniatures, it's all being done with gripping beast miniatures, so it'll be nice to see the difference in the sculpts and the styling, and so again, a lot of cavalry, that's all right, and I'll take my time and do it in installments because that's the only way I could get through it. And I've got here, I've got some Carthaginians, including an elephant. I've already assembled those. They're from Aventine. The elephant took a bit of work, a bit of clean up to get a flush sort of fix with the head to the body and all this, and getting things to fit, and then a bit of green stuff work afterwards to fill in the gaps. But they should shape up all right. So they'll be coming along later. Also, I've got some early Imperial Roman stuff that's come in, and I know in the pipeline there'll be, for next year, certainly there's more Carthaginians. There should be some Napoleonic Württembergers from Piano War Games, which I'm really looking forward to having a look at those, and an assortment of other things. So lots of cool miniatures. I hope that you've enjoyed the video, perhaps seen some miniatures you haven't seen before. But if you've got any comments, drop them down below. Any questions about how I did things, I try to answer them. As I've said to other people before, I don't necessarily write down all the paints I used or remember them, because like I'm on the go with projects all the time, so paints come out and then they go away, and then the next lot of stuff comes out, and yeah. The only other thing I wanted to do was a shout out for a channel who I think I'd like to see, you know, have more subscribers, because he does some great content, and that's a channel called Broken Dice, and the chap there is Tim, and he's over in the United States, I believe, and at the moment he's doing a not that I'm a gamer, but well, not that I'm wargaming at the moment. I have done plenty before, but I can enjoy other people's activities vicariously, you might say. But Tim over at Broken Dice, he's doing a campaign set, I think it's in the Republican Roman era, in the Iberian Peninsula. So with fighting lots of the Spanish and the Romans, and a series of battles, and he's using Hail Caesar as his rule basis, but he's developed this interesting campaign system, maps. He's got ideas of politics and other things that are mixed in, and he's working through a series of battles, and he's doing it all solo, and it's really worth a look. And he paints a lot of different miniatures, I've been following him for a while now. So please go and check Tim at Broken Dice. Yeah, the channel's just called Broken Dice. I'll try and remember to put a link below. And go and give him a sub and give him a watch. And yeah, perhaps you'll enjoy his campaign series as well. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, up next, I'm not sure, maybe, I think in the queue, maybe I should be doing some Strathclyde next. I might do some of that. Yeah. Anyway, thanks again. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.